Tonight, it's all the Low Country has ever known.
Probably one of the more prominent families in the city.
The Murdaugh family dynasty. Decades of enormous power, wealth, connections. And it all came crumbling down with one phone call.
County 911, what's your emergency?
I need the police to answer immediately.
Tonight, the double murder investigation.
My wife and child got badly.
Exposing years of corruption.
That don't mean that he gets to be killed and nobody gets to find out what happened.
Greed.
Millions of dollars taken from many, many people over a long period of time.
And cover-ups.
When I turned my back, they tried to shoot me.
Secrets that small towns held on to for years, unraveling with twist after twist, each more shocking than the next.
You don't know what else is going to come up.
And it all leads back to one name, Alex Murdaugh.
There's just nothing you could say redeeming about Alex Murdaugh. Nothing.
A NewsNation special report, The Murdaugh Mysteries, starts right now. And good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Marnie Hughes. Tonight, we will take you through a story that is still being written. A tangled web of mystery, murder, lies, and power. And one man at the center of it all, Alex Murdaugh, a disbarred attorney from one of South Carolina's most prominent legal families. In the next hour, you are going to hear about a boat crash, a dead housekeeper, and a teenager found in the middle of the road, all somehow connected to this prominent family. But it is the murder of a mother and her son that is shining a national spotlight on this small county in South Carolina. The double murder trial that starts tomorrow will have some of the state's most experienced litigators in the land facing off inside the courtroom. The question a jury will have to answer is, did Alex Murdaugh kill his wife and son? And if he didn't, who did? South Carolina's Low Country, known for its coastal waterways and salt marshes, part of the Deep South. A century ago, plantations and cotton farms sprinkled the landscape. Now a bustling spot for tourists attracted to the historic cities of Charleston and Savannah. In the southeast corner of the state, we find Hampton, home to less than 3,000 people, a small community where everyone knows everyone.
We have a watermelon festival once a year, and other than that, we don't do anything.
And everyone knows Alex Murdaugh.
The heir to one of the biggest names in South Carolina.
A family with legal roots dating back as old as the county itself. So much so, it's known by some as Murdaugh County. Randolph Murdaugh Sr. became solicitor, a role similar to a district attorney. He was succeeded by his son, Randolph Buster Murdaugh Jr., in 1940, and then his grandson, Randolph Murdaugh III. What is the reputation of this family, this dynasty?
Ruthless, obviously not afraid to use the power that they'd amassed.
And then there's Alex.
Didn't have quite the same reputation as some of his predecessors, known to be a little bit lazy.
The patriarch of a picture-perfect family, until...
County 911, what's your emergency?
I need the police to answer immediately.
June 7th, 2021.
My wife and child got badly.
This 911 call made by Alex at 10:07 at night sends first responders to the family's Moselle estate, a 1,700-acre hunting property tucked away in a rural area.
We know that they were together. They were apparently laughing. There was nothing out of the ordinary. However, within 15 minutes, both Maggie and Paul had been brutally murdered.
According to court documents, Alex's wife, Maggie Murdaugh, was shot multiple times with a high-powered rifle, including in the back of the head while she was lying face down on the ground. Their 22-year-old son, Paul, was killed with a shotgun, struck in the head and chest.
He was a person of interest from the very beginning.
The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, was tasked with investigating the murders. About that same time, the rest of Alex Murdaugh's world started to unravel with another call to 911.
I got a flat tire, and I stopped, and somebody stopped to help me. And when I turned my back, they tried to shoot me.
The initial report was that a vehicle was passing by, saw Alex Murdaugh changing one of his tires, and took a shot at him.
Alex is taken to the hospital with a superficial gun wound.
We've been at every court hearing. I have yet to see it. Not directly disputing them, but I have not seen any evidence of that head wound.
Days later, another bombshell connected to that roadside 911 call. Authorities say Alex hired a man, Curtis Smith, to kill him in exchange for an insurance payout for his surviving son, Buster.
We called them. They didn't know about Curtis Smith. We called them and gave them the entire story, his identity, his phone numbers, all of it.
Curtis has a different story.
He said if I was going to shoot him, he'd be dead. It's just another one of the crazy components of this Southern Gothic drama that just continues to unfold.
Not only did he not get the insurance money, but he's accused of embezzlement and fraud.
Nearly 100 counts of financial criminal activity, totaling nearly $10 million over the period of about a decade.
Stealing from clients in his legal practice. Alex resigned from the firm. Then days later, a 20-year addiction to opioids was revealed, and he went to rehab. Then on July 2022, more than a year after his wife and son were killed, Alex Murdaugh was arrested and charged with their deaths.
Forensic evidence was really what tied investigators to Alex Murdaugh as the top suspect in these killings. But that evidence has come into question over the last few weeks.
Prosecutors say it took Alex more than an hour to call 911. They point to blood splatter on his clothing. And some are questioning whether splatter or the article of clothing where it was potentially found has been damaged or even exists anymore.
You know, again, OJ had the glove that didn't fit. Down here in South Carolina, we've got the white shirt that you can't test anymore to see if it's got that evidence on it.
And they claim to have video of him at the crime scene and motive.
Its theory of motive is that Murdaugh committed these two murders to try to buy time for his financial downfall.
Alex has pleaded not guilty. His defense attorneys say there is no DNA.
We're told he's going to flip that narrative and actually tell the jury that they're going to prove Alex Murdaugh didn't do it.
Now it all comes down to a jury and the battle of some of the best legal minds in the state.
I am told from sources that are very close to both the prosecution and the defense that we should expect some surprises. Basically the trial of the century here in South Carolina.
Shining a spotlight on the Low Country once again, and a man named Murdaugh, who's lived a life on the road of power and privilege that may have finally hit a dead end.
If you look at this thing, I've described it often as a multi-layered web of alleged criminality, and it all goes back to Alex Murdaugh at the center of it.
And we are just getting started. Over the course of the next hour, we will untangle part of this web. We're going to take you through the details of 3 other deaths curiously tied back to this family. Joining us tonight is attorney Jana Spilbor. She is a criminal defense attorney and also has worked as a prosecutor. We appreciate you helping us shine a light on this case and better understand exactly what is at stake starting tomorrow with jury selection. The crime scene was grisly, it was gruesome, the double murders. New details about this crime scene have come out just in the last week. What more have we learned about the murders and where they happened?
Well, the one thing that we know is that the murders happened on the property far away from the main house of the Murdaugh property. But also we know that Alex Murdaugh is claiming that he had an alibi. He was not there at the time that his wife and his youngest son were killed. I think the prosecution is going to try to disprove that premise by saying not only was he nearby, but he was the one who pulled the trigger. Interestingly, not one gun, but 2 different guns were used to commit this crime, which is something that's kind of extraordinary in this case. On the other side of this, his defense attorneys have pretty much signaled that they are going to point the finger of the culprit being not Alex Murdaugh, but instead this his cousin Eddie, as he's known in South Carolina. Instead, the same person who Alex Murdaugh hired to fake his own murder, except that Curtis Smith missed. So this is going to be very interesting. I really think the defense is going to be pointing the finger at this third-party culpability. It's going to make for an interesting defense.
Well, and they'll also be talking about blood spatter and whether or not it was on the shirt that Alex Murdaugh was wearing that night. Why is that so critically important to both sides of the legal argument?
You know, it's very big because on the one hand, the defense is claiming, hey, wait a minute, the shirt is now gone. We did not have an opportunity to forensically test that shirt ourselves, which Alex Murdaugh should have had the right to do. So we can't just go by what the prosecution wants to claim could have put Alex Murdaugh at the scene of the crime. So that's, and we heard in your promo, that is sort of the same as if the glove doesn't fit, right? Because that's a critical piece of evidence. And because it was destroyed or disappeared or never was properly tested, that's going to be big for the defense in this case.
Donna, yes or no, if you were representing Alex Murdaugh, would you put him on the stand to testify?
Absolutely not. No, that's a resounding no. Nobody believes him, first of all. And I think part of the failure of the prosecution here is the defense wants to claim, look, everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion that Alex Murdaugh committed this crime. Therefore, they didn't dive in. They didn't provide enough discovery. They didn't do their own testing sufficiently because everyone thought, hey, it's got to be him. But there's no such thing as a circumstantial hunch. You have to have circumstantial evidence if you don't have direct evidence. And the defense is going to say, not only do they not have it against my client, but we're going to show you that somebody else did this, and we know who.
All right, we shall see. Jonna Spilborn, you'll be back with us later in the hour. Thank you. Coming up, there are more layers to this story, and as you are about to see, Paul and Maggie's deaths are just the tip of the iceberg.
There's 6 of us and 1 is missing.
A haunting boat crash.
It started really back in 2019 is when the wheels started to come off for the Murdaughs.
A death on the family property.
Ma'am, she can't talk. She's cracked her head and there's blood on the concrete.
A teenager found in the middle of the road.
That story has not added up from the very beginning.
3 deaths in 4 years. And the common denominator?
Alex Murdaugh.
Thank you for joining us tonight for a NewsNation special report, The Murdaugh Mysteries. Alex Murdaugh is charged in the deaths of his wife and son, but Paul and Maggie's murders are just part of this complicated story. Many point to another case that opened up Pandora's box into Alex Murdaugh and his influence. February 24th, 2019, more than 2 years before Maggie and Paul were killed, the day a teenager with an ever-present smile tragically lost her life. NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Enton joins us tonight live from Walterboro, South Carolina, where the trial will take place with that part of the story. Brian.
Yeah, Marnie, we're outside the Colleton County Courthouse. It's interesting being here and thinking about the fact that the Murdaughs pretty much controlled this courthouse behind me for generations, and now tomorrow Alex Murdaugh will be here for his murder trial. They have had so much power over this community, and it is really highlighted when you go back and you look at what happened with Alex Murdaugh's son Paul when he was arrested in a deadly boat accident, but never even spent one night behind bars.
There's 6 of us and 1 is missing. What, Molly? She's in the water.
Can you see her?
Carnage and chaos.
Okay.
19-year-old Mallory Beach missing after a night on the boat with friends. The recent high school graduate jettisoned from her boyfriend's arms when a 17-foot center console plowed into a piling in Beaufort County, South Carolina.
Tide, wind is always a factor.
More than a dozen first responders and an army of volunteers searched for a week.
Bring in the air assets to help us look in the areas that the boats can't get into.
Prayer chains to find Mallory alive turned to an unbearable wave of grief.
Miss your voice, miss your smile, everything about you worth the while.
The store where she worked and modeled clothing posting a public tribute, but privately, the Murdaugh machine was at work.
A lot of influence across the board. Nothing really happens unless the Murdaugh family says it happens.
It was the Murdaugh's boat, the family's youngest son Paul parking it at a gas pump. He was at the helm, or was he? Friend Connor Cook on board as well that night, and his attorney says it was not long before Alex Murdaugh was telling all 5 survivors to stay quiet on who was captain. What was clear immediately, though, alcohol was in copious use by the underage boaters. The police report saying all were grossly intoxicated, yet no one's blood alcohol levels were checked at the scene.
Same thing if everybody's standing around a car, you don't know who drove it. It's not against the law to be standing around a car intoxicated.
But Mallory's boyfriend, Anthony Cook, is said to have told authorities immediately that Paul Murdaugh was the captain. And Paul left a trail of photos about town, parked at the pump, not for gas. His friends say he used his big brother Buster's ID to buy beer and malted drinks at the store. The 20-year-old raising his purchases triumphantly before they're loaded into his pickup truck. Later, after drinking with parents present at an oyster roast, the group continued boating to dodge known DUI roadside checkpoints. Docking near a bar called Luther's, where Paul and Connor do more drinking. Back in the boat, one friend testifying Paul was belligerently drunk, slapping his girlfriend, spitting in her face, refusing to give up the wheel until the deadly crash.
Please send someone.
No, we're calling, okay?
The Murdaugh family served nearly a century consecutively as the area's solicitor, meaning they prosecuted cases, putting them in close working relationships with officers, deputies, state agents on the case, and others.
They always put on a get-together every year for first responders, police officers, things of that nature.
This family has been powerful and at the center of power and influence there for almost 100 years.
Therefore, I'm going to set a personal recognizance bond.
It would take nearly 2 months for Paul Murdaugh to be criminally charged. Eyebrows raised with his release that same day with a $50,000 bond and surrender of his passport.
Anything to say about that, about why he decided to plead not guilty?
Because he's not guilty.
His former friend Connor cleared at last.
Connor was left to twist in the breeze for nearly 2 months.
Next, the crash bringing an ongoing bevy of civil suits from Mallory's mom, Anthony Connor, and the other young women demanding Alex Murdaugh's financials, the beginning of the unraveling of a low-country Southern dynasty.
So we have to put a spotlight on things like this because it cannot continue.
And so many people who live in this community say that boat crash was just another example of the Murdaughs getting special treatment. There was one woman, Marnie, we spoke to here over the weekend who says after the arrest, after Paul Murdaugh was arrested, just a couple of days later, they saw him out to lunch with his family laughing at a restaurant, and they all just looked at each other, this group of friends, and said, gosh, nothing is ever going to happen to this family. He didn't even spend one night behind bars, Marnie.
And as I understand it, Brian, this case is still playing out in the courts today.
It is. Mallory Beach, the victim, and 3 other of the people who were on the boat, they have settlements that they're supposed to get from the Murdaugh family. They sued civilly. They were supposed to get money from the sale of a Murdaugh property. They still haven't gotten most of that money, though, because it turns out one of Alex Murdaugh's partners from the law firm also says he's entitled to some of that money. It's all so complicated, and all of that still continues to drag on in the courts.
Yeah, the wheels of justice turning slowly, and still so many secrets. Brian, live in Walterboro, South Carolina. Thank you. We'll see you again shortly. Still to come, yet another death leads back to the Murdaughs. A bombshell from a retired investigator.
Personally, I think there was some type of pressure.
Plus, years of scheming and a money trail that's gone dark.
Where did the money go? I think that's one of the biggest mysteries about this story.
You are watching a NewsNation special report, The Murdaugh Mysteries. Disbarred South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh is facing life in prison, charged in the deaths of his wife and son. But there is yet another death tied to this family that prosecutors may use as a motive for the murders of Maggie and Paul. It has to do with the Murdaugh family housekeeper, a woman named Gloria Satterfield. NewsNation's Brian Enton back with us again tonight. Brian.
Yeah, Marnie, the housekeeper death, it is just another bizarre element to all of this. So many people here said it didn't make sense that she just randomly died falling down the stairs at the Murdaugh property. But it's what Alex Murdaugh did after the death that began to expose his money-making schemes.
Ma'am, she can't talk.
Okay, do you know...
She's cracked her head and there's blood on the concrete and she's bleeding out of her left ear.
According to the Murdaugh family, Gloria Satterfield came by to get her check at the hunting lodge back in 2018. A family dog jumped on her at the top of a flight of stairs, causing her to fall.
I believe she's maybe hit her head and maybe has a concussion or something.
Okay. Do you know what her name is?
Gloria Satterfield.
The 57-year-old later died at the hospital, and the Satterfield family says Alex Murdaugh approached the family after the funeral, suggesting her sons Tony and Brian sue him for insurance money. Satterfield's family thought he was looking out for them, helping them after Gloria worked for the family for more than 20 years.
For her, it was a badge of honor. She considered herself to be part of their family, and she was proud of what she did. She never spoke about her time in the house with her family. She wouldn't reveal those secrets.
The family was to get more than $4 million from her fall, but her boys, Tony and Brian, never saw a cent. What we now know is Murdaugh stole the settlement money.
We got a confession of judgment from Alex Murdaugh for the entire $4.3 million. And that confession of judgment has been a very valuable tool for a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. Once we got that confession of judgment, Alex was disbarred the next day.
And that is when Alex Murdaugh's web of lies started to unravel. At the heart of it all, money. Prosecutors say his money scheme started as early as October 2015. It's believed Murdaugh's MO was to defraud victims out of their settlement money. So far, prosecutors say he took $8.5 million, and that number could keep growing. It remains unclear what Murdaugh was using the money for. His lawyers have suggested opioids.
We're really not going to know where that money went to. We do know that based on the charges a couple weeks ago for income tax evasion, Alex made a lot of money from 2010 to 2019. Some years, $2.5 million.
But time and time again, he diverted money intended for victims, laundering it ultimately for his own use. One of the alleged victims, a state police officer, injured on the job. Murdaugh facing charges in a host of cases, all being moved after the murder trial of Maddie and Paul Murdaugh. The Murdaugh's umbrella insurance policy and family assets will help pay future judgments, a conservatorship appointed to protect any source of money for potential victims. The family assets, according to local estimates, Maggie's estate valued at $5 million, with Alex as the beneficiary. Alex's retirement fund at $2 million, and his father's fund is still in probate around $1 million, with Alex again the beneficiary.
You don't steal that kind of money for that long without being good at deceiving folks.
And while the Satterfield case is one of the few already settled, a criminal investigation into her death has been reopened.
The coldest thing that I've come across was Gloria's son, Brian, was living with her. Obviously, after her death, there was not enough money. There was no money. The bank foreclosed on that mobile home. Alex knew that. Alex knew that the foreclosure was happening, and Alex had already taken $3.5 million. And so he sat back and watched Brian lose a mobile home and get pushed out on the street to have to go live with family members while he was sitting on $3.5 million of their money.
And what's so sad is that Gloria, Marnie, was not just the Murdaugh's housekeeper. You heard it in the piece. She worked for them for 20 years. She was the nanny for the Murdaugh boys, basically living in their home. Her family says it was just the ultimate betrayal, the way all of this turned out. Marnie?
She was part of that family, and by extension, so were her two boys who did not get part of that insurance settlement. Brian Enton live in Walterboro, South Carolina, where the trial will take place tomorrow. Brian, thank you. Just when you think this case can't get more complex, it takes another turn. A teenager dead on a dark rural road.
It definitely was not a hit and run.
The case still unsolved. Why seasoned investigators say they were silenced. Plus, Alex Murdaugh, in his own words,
With a prepaid collect call from
Alex.
who he's calling from jail. Disbarred attorney Alex Murdaugh faces 2 counts of murder in the deaths of his wife and son. But there is yet another case tied back to this family that has gone unsolved for years. And it wasn't until Paul and Maggie's murders that investigators gave this case a closer look. NewsNation correspondent Rich McHugh is joining us live tonight from South Carolina with the story of 19-year-old Stephen Smith, whose body was found in the middle of a rural road back in 2015. Rich, good evening.
Good evening, Marnie. This is one of those unsolved cases that just baffles people around here. Few people actually believe that Stephen Smith was the victim of a hit and run, but the case went largely ignored for years until these other Murdaugh cases came to light. And one detail that seems to bug people the most is that of the people who showed up at the scene where Stephen Smith died, several of the Murdaughs, and few people understand why. Stephen Smith was studying to be a nurse at the Orangeburg Calhoun Technical College. His end goal was to become a doctor. July 8th, 2015, he was on his way home from school when he ran out of gas. The car was found down this dark rural road in Hampton County, South Carolina. Stephen's body was found 3 miles away in the middle of the road with no skid marks or other physical evidence that a car had struck him. A special accident investigative team looked at the case and determined it was a homicide, but a pathologist disagreed, saying he likely died from a mirror of a passing car hitting Stephen's face.
It definitely was not a hit and run. He had blunt force trauma, and it seemed to be an intentional act, which we consider homicide.
Eric Bland, an attorney involved in several cases connected to Alex Murdaugh's numerous cases, knows Stephen Smith's mom, Sandy.
So we think he was dumped there on the road. Was a very sharp kid as a young man. He was cautious, and so he wouldn't have been walking down the road. He certainly knew the area. He had a cell phone, could have called somebody for help.
Sandy Smith was relentless in her quest for answers. She asked the FBI, the governor, and others to keep investigating. But the case went nowhere until Mallory Beach was killed on the Murdaugh boat 4 years later. People started asking questions about the old Stephen Smith case. Corporal Duncan told us the Murdaugh family name came up in his initial investigation, but that part of the investigation didn't go anywhere. And when asked if behind the scenes there was pressure to stop the investigation or to leave the case as a hit and run?
Personally, I think there was some type of pressure or just lack of investigation upon other agencies to do anything.
But the real break in the Smith case came after the Murdaugh double murders. During that investigation, new information came to light. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division tells NewsNation they've made progress in the death investigation of Stephen Smith. However, this investigation remains active and ongoing. Reporter Will Folks with Fit News tells us Buster's name often came up with the Smith case.
And there was clearly a Murdaugh tie-in to the death of Stephen Smith, because if you read investigatory report from his death back in 2015, the Murdaugh name is mentioned dozens of times. In fact, this was one of the first files I ever received related to this story.
The oldest Murdaugh son, Buster, was the same age as Stephen and his twin sister. Being from a small town, they all went to school together and everyone knew one another. As the multiple Murdaugh cases have played out in this small Carolina community, rumors have swirled. After the news of Stephen's death came rumors that Buster and Stephen had some sort of relationship. The Smith family attorney says this.
They graduated high school together. They had, friends in common, had played ball together when they were younger. You can't say there's no connection. Nobody knows what Stephen's life was like. What I will say is that we know of no evidence that would support any kind of, relationship between Stephen and Buster.
But it was Alex Murdaugh and his brother Randy who came to the scene of Stephen's death, going through the crime tape. No one's sure why. Inconsistencies in the initial investigation have left many wondering why his death was never investigated as a homicide.
It was clear that this case was not handled correctly. Why? I can't tell you. Maybe it was simply incompetence. Maybe it was purposeful, but I do believe that the truth is going to come out.
Now, I mentioned, Marnie, in the piece that Alex and his brother Randy came to the crime scene, or the scene of where he passed away. One thing that I want to note is that Randy called the family the following day or soon thereafter and offered to help, and his law firm is now disputing that, saying that never happened. Marnie.
Rich, I know, having looked into this case, that Stephen's mom has been pushing for justice for her son so many years after he was found in the middle of that road. We also know that something happened to Stephen's father not long after Stephen was killed.
That's right, Marnie. He passed away about 3 months after his son's death. His wife says that he basically died. She feels he died of a broken heart. She says basically she's been offered, book deals. She's been offered a Netflix deal. She is basically just seeking justice for her son, Stephen, at this point.
Yeah, and answers. Thoughts with that family tonight, having to go through this time and time again. Rich McHugh in South Carolina tonight. Rich, thank you for that. Joining me now is Andrew Davis. He's a reporter with our NewsNation station in Savannah. Andrew has been on the Murdaugh case since the very beginning and all of the tragic twists and turns that we have been telling you about tonight. Andrew, thank you for being with us. Alex Murdaugh made that 911 call after his wife Maggie and son Paul were found dead. It wasn't until 13 months later, though, that he was arrested. Why that much time?
Well, that seems to be the question that a lot of people have right now. SLED has said it's because they were trying to do their due diligence to make sure they had the right person. But from the beginning, they never claimed at any point that there was a suspect out there. There was never a warning to the public about there being a shooter. You had 2 people dead, yet at some point the town of Hampton wasn't put on warning to say there could be a killer out there. There's no one. So they seem to know who it was almost from the beginning. So then they continued on. They waited. Alec actually put out a reward money for the suspect in this case. Meanwhile, SLED was completely tight-lipped on everything that they were doing and waited until 13 months later. And only now are we starting to get some of the details on exactly what they may have that could connect Alec back to these killings.
Yeah, we'll hear about some of those details and evidence in court this week. The other cases that we have brought to light tonight that you know so well, the boat accident involving Paul, the housekeeper's death and the financial fraud and the embezzlement, Stephen Smith's death that Rich was just reporting on. What of these cases is most significant to the murder trial now?
I think you have to look at the boat crash being the most significant because it was a key factor in some of the financial information coming out. Within a week after when these killings happened, about a week later, there was supposed to be a full financial accounting coming from the civil case connected to Mallory Beach's death in that boat crash. So Alec would have had to reveal those financial documents, which would have shown a lot of these crimes that he apparently committed on the financial side of things. Also, there's the question of how much shame did Paul bring to this family, which a lot of people have wondered by. And also, was there just a rift somewhere connected to the boat crash itself, the money that seems to be missing, and whether Maggie knew about it? She called for forensic accounting from the law firm just a few days before this. So it all stemmed from the boat crash, and really it all comes tumbling down the moment that that boat hit that piling.
Andrew, Alex Murdaugh's surviving son, Buster, what do we know about him? Has he ever spoken publicly about the case and what is happening right now to his dad and to his family?
He's not. He's really been kept to himself so much. We believe he's working with the family right now. He does live in Hilton Head, South Carolina, so he's not living in Hampton instead. He's supposed to get about $500,000 in this civil settlement that could happen between Maggie Murdaugh's estate and the Beach family itself. So far, though, he's very much kept to that. We've heard him only on those recordings with his father, talking to his father. He seemed upset that maybe some of the media had been following him around, that he had become a key point in all this. But overall, he has not spoken publicly. We don't know if he's actually going to show up at court to see some of these things. We don't necessarily expect him to, because I would have to think it'd be incredibly hard to hear what happened to your brother and your mother, no matter who would be responsible, and especially if it was your father. I don't think you can handle that and stay in court and listen to it.
Yeah, and especially because of the gruesome details of the murders that night. Andrew Davis from our NewsNation station in Savannah. You'll be inside the courtroom and covering this trial extensively. We are thankful to partner with you. We appreciate you being with us tonight. Can Alex Murdaugh's attorney convince a jury there is reasonable doubt? That is still ahead, and that's not all. Up next.
You get to gamble any?
Yeah.
Alex's life behind bars, ahead of the Low Country's trial of the century.
You have some of the most gifted attorneys in the state.
Can his experienced defense team convince a jury they've got the wrong guy? Prominent South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh is charged with 2 counts of murder in the 2021 deaths of his wife and son. And if convicted, he faces life in prison. We want to share with you now some phone calls Alex has made from behind bars as he awaits his fate. These are conversations with his family, including his only surviving son, Buster.
This is an MTEL operator calling from Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center with a prepaid collect call from
Alex. I mean, you know, every one of these phone calls is recorded, and you know that they're listening to them. I've been doing a lot of thinking just about taking all these pills and how that all started. And I mean, there's no doubt when I started taking them that I'll wait till I get out and tell you all this. There's things I remember now that, this just goes back 20 years. No, this goes back 23 years. Did you get to gamble any?
Yeah, so I did go gambling, and then the next day there was an article created about how I'm misusing funds.
By gambling?
Yeah, someone took a picture of me and John Marvin in the casino.
You're kidding me. What a are you kidding me?
You doing okay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing good as you can. I mean, dealing with it,
Yeah, I understand.
Drive you crazy, but I mean, I wish I had a recording to play you some of the noises you hear at night. Who do we play?
Texas A&M.
That's what I thought. I'll probably call you to see the score.
Okay.
All right, I love you.
All right, love you too.
It was Alex there talking to his son, Buster, and much of their conversation seemed very normal between a dad and a son, but he is facing life in prison if convicted. Back with us now, attorney Jonna Spilbor, as we lay out all of the complexities of this case, in addition to the murders of Maggie and Paul. You've got the boat accident, you've got the financial fraud connected to the housekeeper's death, and you've got the tragic death of Stephen Smith that has still remained unsolved. The judge in this case will have to decide what, if anything, is admissible. What will he be taking into consideration tomorrow and in the days to come?
My best guess is that so much of that ancillary stuff, so much of the cases that don't directly involve the 2 murder charges at issue in this trial will likely not come in. And I think if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, the Murdaugh defense camp has basically said they are going to mount not only a technical defense, meaning you can expect a lot of objections, but also that they're going to mount the third-party culpability defense. So the things that make us in our guts believe that Alex Murdaugh is guilty of these murders is likely not to come in at all, because it's going to be propensity evidence, things that are just not allowed under the rules of evidence. They are going to be very narrow. The prosecution is going to be in a very narrow lane to have to simply prove the elements of these 2 murders and the weapons charges. And if the defense attorneys are true to their word, they're going to keep them in a very, very tight lane.
What about this fact that we're hearing that representatives from Google and Snapchat will be likely called to testify in this case because there could be some sort of video evidence from the night of the murders from Paul's phone? That is an allegation being put out there. How does that factor in to the evidence and how the defense will respond?
You know, it's very interesting because, and please pardon this pun, I don't think there's going to be a smoking gun in this case, which means the prosecution is going to have to take everything they can find admissible to try to prove circumstantially the elements of these offenses. The prosecution has said, yes, there's some cell phone video out there that puts the defendant at the scene of the crime, but the veracity of that is, the reliability of that is definitely going to be tested, because when it comes to that kind of evidence, the cell phone evidence, whether it's a ping, whether it's a video, those types of things can be manipulated. Those types of things, if not preserved and tested on either side, are subject to a battle of the experts, so to speak. So if the judge allows that in, you can bet the defense will also be allowed to call experts to testify that, you know, the timing or the veracity of that type of evidence is just not enough to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt.
Real quickly, Jonna, it is going to be challenging to seat a jury in this case because it is such a small community. Everyone knows this family and everyone knows the story. What is the likelihood of a hung jury with fear as an element in the jury pool?
That's such a great question. You know, I think at this point, maybe, since the Murdaugh family has so fallen from grace, perhaps a jury won't be too fearful. It's not like, you know, you have a mob defendant, right, that they might be fearful of a repercussion after the verdict. But I do think that the prosecution really has a tough road to hoe, despite all of the things we know on the outskirts, because that information, that evidence will likely not see the light of day. So when you have the defense camp saying it was this guy and not my guy, there's an excellent chance for a hung jury here, if not a flat-out acquittal.
We'll see. Attorney Jonna Spilborn, thank you for your time tonight. And as we have laid out for you over the last hour, this tragic story is still being told. What we know is Paul and Maggie Murdaugh were brutally murdered. A jury of Alex peers will now decide his fate. They will be considering the evidence in this case, and they will follow the facts. And they will have to ask themselves the question only Alex knows. Did he kill his wife and son, or is he innocent? NewsNation will be covering the trial, starting with jury selection tomorrow from the courthouse. From all of us here at NewsNation, thank you for watching tonight.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.